The man was almost frozen to death when Nia saw his face. 1 minute, she was a wife returning from all-night church service with her husband and sleeping daughter. The next minute, her car had broken down on a lonely, snowy street, and a stranger was shaking beside an old brick house. But when Nia stepped closer, her blood turned cold. It was not a stranger. It was Marcus Whitfield, the billionaire who forced her into marriage, the man who used her, threw her away, and rejected the child sleeping in her back seat. Marcus lifted his weak head and whispered, "Nia, please help me." Her husband turned to her, confused. "Nia, who is this man?" Nia's voice trembled as the past came alive. "This is my ex-husband," she said, "and he destroyed my life." The snow was falling hard over Atlanta that night. Bright streetlights shone over the white road, making the whole street look silver and cold. Nia Brooks sat in the passenger seat of the black SUV, wrapped in her cream wool coat, her long braids tucked under a knitted hat. Her husband, Frederick "Fred" Brooks, a tall black American man with deep brown skin, a neat beard, and calm, serious eyes, drove carefully through the empty street. In the back seat, their daughter Aaliyah slept with her little Bible pressed against her chest. They had just left an all-night church service. Nia was tired, but her heart felt peaceful. Then the car jerked. Fred frowned. The engine coughed once, then again. Then the whole SUV stopped in the middle of the road. "Oh no," Nia whispered. Fred turned the key. Nothing happened. Aaliyah stirred in the back. "Mommy?" "It's okay, baby," Nia said softly. "Go back to sleep." Fred stepped out and lifted the hood. Cold air rushed into the car before he shut the door. Nia watched him through the windshield as steam rose from the engine. Then something moved near the corner of an old brick house. Nia leaned forward. At first, she thought it was a pile of old clothes, but then the shape shook. A hand moved. A man was curled against the wall, trembling in the snow. Nia's heart jumped. "Fred!" she called, stepping out. Fred turned. "What is it?" "There's somebody over there." Fred looked toward the corner. His face tightened. "Stay back, Nia. We don't know who that is." "But he's freezing." "And you're not walking up to a stranger on an empty street." Nia looked back at Aaliyah, sleeping in the car. Then she looked at the man again. He was shaking so badly, his shoulders looked like they might break. "We just came from church," Nia said. "I can't leave him there." Fred exhaled and moved beside her. "Then I'm coming with you." Together they walked through the snow. The closer Nia got, the stranger the feeling in her chest became. The man had a torn black coat, wet shoes, an unkempt beard, and thick hair matted against his forehead. His lips trembled. His fingers were stiff from the cold. "Sir?" Nia called gently. "Can you hear me?" The man slowly lifted his head. Their eyes met. Nia stopped breathing. For one long second, the whole world went silent. The snow kept falling. Fred looked from Nia to the man. "Baby, what's wrong?" The man's eyes widened. His voice came out broken. "Nia!" Nia stepped back as if the name had slapped her. "No," she whispered. The man tried to rise, but his body failed him. He fell back against the wall, shaking. "Nia," he said again. "Please." Fred moved closer to his wife. "Who is this man?" Nia's face hardened, but her eyes filled with pain. "This is Marcus Whitfield," she said. Fred froze. "The billionaire Marcus Whitfield?" Nia nodded slowly. "My ex-husband." Marcus lowered his head like a man meeting judgment. Fred stared at him, stunned. Nia's voice dropped. "And this is the man who destroyed my life." Marcus looked up, tears mixing with snow on his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered, but Nia did not move, because before Mercy could speak, memory opened its door. Before Nia Brooks stood in the snow, facing the man who destroyed her life, she had been Nia Carter, a young woman with tired eyes, empty pockets, and a heart full of hope. 9 years earlier, Nia worked late nights at a small diner on the east side of Atlanta. She was not working for luxury. She was working to keep medicine beside her mother's bed. Her mother, Loretta Carter, was a gentle black woman in her late 50s, with warm eyes and a weak body that sickness had slowed down but never defeated. Loretta had raised Nia alone, and Nia loved her too much to let her suffer. That rainy night, Nia left the diner after midnight with leftover food in a paper bag and her shoes soaked from the storm. She pulled her thin coat tighter and whispered, "Lord, just get me home safe." But safety was not waiting for her. A black luxury car came speeding down the road, its headlights cutting through the rain. Nia stepped back from a puddle near the curb. The car swerved, tires screamed. Nia fell hard on the wet pavement. The car stopped inches away from her. The driver's door flew open. Marcus Whitfield stepped out, dressed in a sharp black suit, his expensive shoes splashing into the rain. Back then, he was the proud heir of Whitfield Global, one of the richest companies in the city. He did not ask if she was hurt. He looked angry. "Are you crazy?" Marcus shouted. "Do you know what you almost caused?" Nia held her ankle, pain shooting up her leg. "You were speeding." Marcus stared at her like she had offended him by breathing. "You people always have a plan," he snapped. "Throw yourself in front of a rich man's car, then cry for money." Nia's mouth fell open. "I did not throw myself anywhere. I was walking home." The front passenger door opened, and Marcus's driver rushed out with an umbrella. Calvin Reed was a quiet, middle-aged black man who had worked for the Whitfield family for years. He had kind eyes, but fear lived behind them because he knew Marcus's temper too well. "Sir," Calvin said carefully, "she looks hurt." Marcus glared at him. "I can see that." Calvin knelt beside Nia. "Miss, can you stand?" Nia tried. The pain made her cry out. Marcus looked around the empty road. Then his expression changed, not with guilt, with worry, not worry for Nia, worry for his name. "If anybody sees this, they'll twist it," Marcus muttered. "Calvin, put her in the car." Nia shook her head. "No, just take me to a clinic." Marcus bent toward her. "You'll go where I say." "I don't know you." "And I don't trust you," he replied. Calvin looked sorry, but he helped Nia into the back seat. The car drove through tall iron gates 20 minutes later. Nia stared out the window. The Whitfield mansion rose before her like something from another world. Wide marble steps, tall glass doors, golden lights, a fountain in the center of the driveway. Everything was beautiful, but something about it felt cold. A maid opened the door. Then a woman appeared at the top of the staircase. Zora Whitfield, Marcus's mother. She was an elegant black woman in her 60s, dressed in silk, pearls, and pride. Her face was beautiful, but her eyes were sharp enough to cut. She looked at Nia's wet clothes, then at her injured ankle, then at Marcus. "What is this?" Zora asked. Marcus removed his coat. "An accident." Zora slowly walked down the stairs. Nia lowered her eyes. "Ma'am, I don't want trouble. I only need a doctor." Zora did not answer. She studied Nia like a piece on a chessboard. Then her lips curved into a cold smile. "No," Zora said softly. "You may be exactly what we need." Marcus frowned. "Mother, what are you talking about?" Zora turned to him. "Your father is dead. The board doubts you. They want a settled man before they make you president." Nia's stomach tightened. Zora looked back at her and smiled wider. "Marry the girl," she said. "Get the company, then throw her away." The following morning, after Zora's cruel words echoed through the mansion, Nia Carter woke up in a guest room that looked too beautiful for the nightmare she was trapped inside. Her ankle was wrapped. A tray of breakfast sat untouched beside the bed. Outside the tall windows, The rain had stopped, but Nia's heart was still shaking. She had heard everything. Marry the girl, get the company, then throw her away. Nia pushed herself up just as the door opened. Marcus entered first. Zora followed behind him like a queen entering court. Nia's voice trembled. I want to go home. Marcus folded his arms. That may not be possible. Nia stared at him. What does that mean? Zora sat gracefully in the chair near the bed. It means you are in a very delicate situation, child. I'm not your child, Nia said. Zora's smile disappeared. Marcus stepped closer. You caused an accident last night. Nia's eyes widened. You almost hit me. That is your version, Marcus said. My version is that a desperate woman stepped into the road to trap me for money. Nia's face went cold. You would lie like that? Marcus looked away for a second, but Zora answered for him. People believe power, not poverty. Nia swallowed hard. She thought of her mother at home, probably waiting by the window. Loretta needed medicine. She needed food. She needed her daughter. Nia tried to stand, but pain shot through her ankle. Please, she whispered. My mother is sick. She depends on me. Zora leaned forward. Then you should think carefully before refusing us. Marcus walked to the window. The board meets soon. They think I'm reckless. They want proof that I can lead the company with discipline. Nia shook her head. And you think marrying me will prove that? Zora laughed softly. It will look beautiful in the papers. A grieving son, a sudden love story, a humble woman by his side. The public will eat it up. Nia felt sick. I won't do it. Marcus turned sharply. Then I call the police. Nia froze. I will tell them you planned the accident, he said. I will say you tried to blackmail me. I will use every lawyer my family owns. Tears filled Nia's eyes. You don't even know me. I know enough, Marcus said coldly. Zora stood. Poor people do not have the luxury of pride. You can marry him quietly and leave later with something in your hand. Or you can go to jail and leave your sick mother alone. That broke Nia. Not because she was weak, because they had found the one place she could not defend. Her mother. What kind of people are you? Nia whispered. Zora smiled again. Successful ones. 2 days later, Calvin drove Nia to her house under Marcus's orders so she could collect clothes. Loretta cried when she saw her daughter limping. What happened to you? Nia hugged her mother tightly. Mama, I have to do something. I don't have a choice. Loretta pulled back. There is always a choice. Nia shook her head, crying. Not when rich people decide your life is theirs. The wedding happened 1 week later in a private courthouse. Nia wore a simple white dress Zora chose for her. Marcus wore a dark suit and a fake smile. Cameras flashed outside as reporters shouted questions. Mr. Whitfield, is this true love? Marcus wrapped an arm around Nia's waist. Yes, he said smoothly. She changed my life. Nia's eyes burned, but she smiled because Marcus's hand tightened warningly against her side. Later, inside the limousine, the smile vanished from his face. Do not embarrass me, he said. Do not ask questions. Do not pretend this is real. Nia stared out the window as the mansion gates opened before them. She had entered as an injured stranger. Now she returned as a wife. But deep in her spirit, Nia knew the truth. She had not entered a marriage. She had entered a cage. After Nia entered the Whitfield mansion as Marcus's wife, the whole city believed she had found a dream. But inside those tall gates, Nia lived inside a quiet punishment. The newspapers called her lucky. The servants called her Mrs. Whitfield. The board members smiled whenever Marcus brought her to public events. But Marcus never called her wife when they were alone. To him, she was a costume, a pretty story. A poor girl used to polish his damaged name. Every morning, Zora inspected Nia, like she was an employee. If Nia wore a dress, Zora said it looked cheap. If Nia sat quietly at dinner, Zora said she lacked class. If Nia tried to speak, Zora reminded her she was only in the house because the Whitfields allowed it. One evening, Nia stood near the grand dining table while Marcus and Zora discussed the company. "Tomorrow is the final board meeting," Zora said. "Do not let that girl ruin anything." Nia looked at Marcus. "That girl has a name." Zora turned slowly. "And that name only matters because it is attached to ours." Marcus did not defend her. He only adjusted his cufflinks and said, "Just smile tomorrow, Nia." The next morning, Nia wore a soft blue dress and stood beside Marcus in the shining boardroom of Whitfield Global. Around the long glass table sat powerful men and women who controlled millions. At the head was Chairman Robert Ellis, an older black businessman with silver hair and sharp eyes. He had been friends with Marcus's late father, but he did not trust Marcus easily. Chairman Ellis studied Nia, then Marcus. "Marriage does not make a man responsible," he said. Marcus smiled. "No, sir, but commitment changes a man." Nia felt his hand tighten around hers. She wanted to laugh. Commitment? He did not even speak to her unless cameras were present. But the board believed the performance. By sunset, Marcus Whitfield was voted president of Whitfield Global. Zora cried fake tears in front of reporters. Marcus kissed Nia's forehead for the cameras. The crowd clapped. That night, the mansion celebrated with champagne, music, and guests dressed in expensive clothes. Nia stood beside Marcus, smiling until her cheeks hurt. When the last guest left, the music stopped. So did the pretending. Marcus walked into the sitting room and threw a white envelope on the table. Nia looked at it. "What is this?" "Money," he said. "For what?" "For you to leave." Nia's breath caught. Zora entered behind him, holding a glass of wine. "Your service is complete." Nia stared at Marcus. "You promised this would be temporary, but I thought at least you had a heart." Marcus looked tired. "Don't make this emotional." "You used me," she whispered. Zora laughed. "And you benefited. You slept under our roof. You ate our food. You wore our name." Nia's eyes filled with tears. "I was kind to you, Marcus. I prayed for you after your father died. I tried to respect this marriage even though you made it ugly." For 1 second, Marcus looked ashamed. Then Zora snapped, "Marcus!" His face hardened again. "Pack your things," he said. 2 maids came in quietly. One looked at Nia with pity, but fear kept her silent. Nia walked upstairs and packed 1 suitcase. No goodbye, no apology, no justice. Calvin drove her back to her mother's small house in silence. When Nia stepped inside, Loretta rushed to her. "What happened?" Nia collapsed into her arms. "They threw me away, Mama." Weeks later, while washing dishes, Nia suddenly felt dizzy. The room spun. Loretta helped her sit down. The doctor confirmed it the next day. Nia was pregnant, and the baby belonged to Marcus Whitfield. The day after the doctor confirmed Nia was pregnant, Loretta sat beside her daughter on the edge of the bed and held her hand like she was holding something fragile. Nia had not slept. The doctor's words kept ringing in her ears. "You are pregnant. Pregnant by the same man who had used her. Pregnant by the same family that had thrown her away." Loretta wiped Nia's tears with the corner of her robe. "You have to tell him," she said softly. Nia shook her head. "Mama, they don't care about me." "This is not about you alone anymore," Loretta said. "That child deserves to be known." Nia placed 1 trembling hand on her stomach. "What if they hurt me again?" Loretta's voice became firm. "Then they will answer to God, but we will not hide the truth." So the next morning, Nia wore the cleanest dress she owned. It was pale yellow, simple, and carefully ironed. Loretta wore her church coat even though her body was weak. They took 2 buses and walked the rest of the way to the Whitfield mansion. The gates looked taller than Nia remembered. Colder, too. A guard stepped out of the security booth and frowned. "State your business." Nia swallowed. "I need to see Marcus Whitfield." The guard looked her up and down. "Do you have an appointment?" Loretta lifted her chin. "Tell him his wife is here." The guard's eyes widened. Nia looked away. She hated that word now. Wife. A title they had used like a chain. After several minutes, the gates opened. They walked up the long driveway under the bright morning sun. The mansion shone like polished stone, beautiful enough to fool the world. But Nia knew better. Inside, Marcus stood in the grand sitting room near the fireplace. Zora sat on a cream sofa, holding a glass of red juice, like she had been waiting for entertainment. Zora smiled the moment she saw them. "Well," she said, "look what came crawling back." Loretta stiffened. "Watch how you speak to my daughter." Zora's eyebrows rose. "And you must be the mother. Poverty really does travel in pairs." Nia's face burned, but she forced herself to look at Marcus. "I'm not here for money," she said. Marcus folded his arms. "Then why are you here?" Nia's voice shook. "I'm pregnant." The room went silent. For the first time, Marcus looked truly shaken. His eyes dropped to her stomach. Zora stood slowly. "Excuse me?" Nia held her ground. "The baby is Marcus's. I thought he should know." Zora laughed, but it was an ugly laugh. "You thought wrong." Loretta stepped forward. "That child is blood of this family, whether you like it or not." Zora's face hardened. "Do not come into my house making claims." Nia turned to Marcus. "Say something." Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Zora walked closer to Nia. "You think because my son made the mistake of marrying you for a few weeks, you can return with a stomach and demand a place here?" "I demanded nothing," Nia whispered. "I only came with the truth." "The truth?" Zora snapped. "The truth is, you are a beggar who tasted wealth once and became hungry for more." Loretta's voice shook with anger. "My daughter is not a beggar." Zora turned and threw the red juice from her glass. It splashed across Nia's yellow dress. Nia gasped. Loretta cried out, "How dare you!" Servants froze near the doorway. One maid covered her mouth. No one moved to help. Nia looked down at the red stain spreading across her dress like shame. Then she looked at Marcus. "Marcus," she begged, "please." His jaw tightened. For one brief moment, regret crossed his face. Then Zora said his name. "Marcus." That was all it took. He looked away. Nia's heart broke in a way it had not broken before. Not because of Zora's words, not because of the juice on her dress, because Marcus had chosen silence. Again. Zora pointed toward the door. "Get out before I release the dogs." Loretta grabbed Nia's hand. "Come, baby." Nia did not move at first. She stared at Marcus one last time. "One day," she whispered, "you will remember this moment." Marcus said nothing. Nia turned and walked out with her mother. The sun was bright outside, but Nia felt colder than winter. At the gate, she stopped and placed both hands over her stomach. Tears slipped down her face. "I promise you," she whispered to her unborn child, "you will never beg the Whitfields for love." Months after Nia walked away from the Whitfield mansion, with red juice staining her dress and pain burning in her heart, she gave birth to a baby girl. The moment the nurse placed the child in her arms, Nia forgot the mansion. She forgot Zora's insults. She forgot Marcus's silence. For one sweet moment, all she saw was the tiny face looking back at her. Loretta stood beside the hospital bed, tears shining in her eyes. "She is beautiful," Loretta whispered. Nia touched the baby's soft cheek. "Her name is Alia." Alia Carter came into the world with bright eyes, soft curls, and a cry strong enough to make the nurses laugh. She was small, but from the beginning she had a spirit that filled every room. Nia kissed her forehead. "You are not a mistake," she whispered. "You are my blessing." But blessing still needed food, they still needed diapers, they still needed rent. So Nia worked. She cleaned offices before sunrise. She served tables in the afternoon. She braided hair on weekends. Sometimes she came home so tired she could barely remove her shoes. Loretta helped as much as she could. Even with her sickness, she rocked Alia, sang old gospel songs to her, and told her stories about strong women who survived storms. Years passed. Alia grew into a sweet little girl with curious eyes and a smile that could soften the hardest heart. She loved church songs, picture books, and asking questions at the worst possible time. What evening, while Nia was cooking rice and beans in their small kitchen, Alia sat at the table, swinging her feet. "Mummy?" "Yes, baby?" "Where is my daddy?" The spoon froze in Nia's hand. Loretta looked up from the couch. Nia forced herself to breathe. "Why do you ask?" Alia shrugged. "Maya at school said her daddy picked her up yesterday. Everybody has a daddy." Nia turned back to the stove so her daughter would not see her eyes fill. "Your daddy is far away," she said gently. "Is he coming back?" Nia swallowed the pain in her throat. "One day, when you are older, I will explain everything." Alia looked down at her little hands. "Did he love me?" That question nearly broke Nia. She walked over, knelt in front of her daughter, and held her face. "I love you enough for the whole world," Nia said. Alia nodded, but sadness stayed in her eyes. That night, after Alia slept, Nia cried in the bathroom with a towel pressed to her mouth so no one would hear. Loretta knocked softly. "Baby, you cannot carry this forever." Nia wiped her face. "I'm not carrying it for me. I'm carrying it so she won't have to." But life did not stay frozen in pain. At church, women began asking Nia to cook for small gatherings. Her food had flavor, heart, and memory in it. Soon, people were paying her for trays of chicken, rice, greens, cornbread, and peach cobbler. One woman pushed her harder than anyone. Tasha Green was Nia's best friend from church, a bold, cheerful black woman with short natural hair, bright lipstick, and a mouth that feared nobody. She had known hardship too, but she laughed like the devil had already lost. One Saturday morning, Tasha placed a stack of empty food containers on Nia's table. "You need to stop cooking like a helper and start cooking like a businesswoman," Tasha said. Nia laughed. "With what money?" "With faith, sense, and these two hands God gave you." Loretta smiled from the couch. "For once, Tasha's right." "For once?" Tasha gasped. "Mama Loretta, I am always right." For the first time in a long time, Nia laughed until tears came. With help from the church women, Nia opened a small food stall near the market. It was nothing fancy, just a tent, folding tables, and handwritten signs. But people lined up before noon. One busy afternoon, Nia was wrapping plates when a familiar voice called her name. "Nia Carter?" She turned. A tall man stood near the fruit stand, staring at her like he had found something he lost years ago. It was Frederick Brooks, the childhood friend who had once helped her study when she almost dropped out of school. His face softened. "I've been looking for you for years," he said. Nia's heart began to pound. Fred stepped closer. "What happened to you?" After Fred asked Nia what had happened to her, she tried to smile like the question did not hurt. But Fred knew better. He had known Nia before pain made her careful. He had known her when she carried textbooks against her chest and dreamed about opening a business one day. He had known the girl who laughed easily. The woman standing before him now laughed like she first had to ask sorrow for permission. Nia looked at the food stall, then at the customers waiting nearby. "Fred, this is not the place." "Then tell me where," he said gently. That evening, after the stall closed, Fred walked Nia home. Loretta greeted him with surprise and joy because she remembered the boy who used to bring Nia school notes when she was too tired to study. Aaliyah peeked from behind her grandmother's skirt. Fred bent down and smiled. "And who are you?" "I'm Aaliyah," she said proudly. "I'm 5. Fred placed one hand over his heart. 5. That is a very powerful age." Aaliyah giggled. Nia watched them, and something inside her softened. Later, when Aaliyah fell asleep, Nia finally told Fred everything. She told him about the rainy night, the accident, the mansion, the forced marriage, Marcus's cold eyes, Zora's wicked plan, the day Marcus became company president, the envelope of money, the pregnancy, the red juice on her dress, the dogs, and the silence. Marcus's silence hurt the most. Fred sat still, but his jaw tightened with every word. When Nia finished, she wiped her tears quickly. "I know it sounds shameful." Fred looked at her with pain in his eyes. "Shameful for who?" Nia blinked. "Not you," Fred said. "Never you. What they did was shameful. What you survived was strength." Nia covered her mouth as tears came again. Fred did not touch her without permission. He only sat near her and let her cry. From that day, Fred came around often. At first, Nia was afraid. She did not want charity. She did not want pity. She did not want another man thinking he could enter her life and control it. But Fred did not push. He helped carry supplies for the food stall. He fixed a broken shelf in Loretta's kitchen. He brought coloring books for Aaliyah. He sat with Loretta when Nia had late orders. Slowly, he became steady. And steady was something Nia had never received from Marcus. One afternoon, Aaliyah ran from school holding a drawing. "Daddy Fred, look!" Everyone froze. Aaliyah froze too, realizing what she had said. Nia's heart stopped. Fred looked down at the drawing, then at Aaliyah. His eyes became wet, but his voice stayed calm. "That is the best drawing I have ever seen," he said. Aaliyah smiled with relief and jumped into his arms. Nia turned away before anyone saw her tears. That night, Fred stood outside Nia's door. "I won't replace what she lost," he said. "But if God allows me, I will love her like she was always mine." Nia looked at him for a long time. "Fred, I come with pain." "I know. I come with a child. I see that as a blessing. I come with a past that still follows me." Fred stepped closer, but kept respectful distance. "Then we will walk faster than the past." Months later, Fred proposed after Sunday service. Pastor Isaiah Monroe, the leader of their church, was a wise black man in his 60s with a strong voice, kind eyes, and a way of speaking that made people feel God was personally calling their name. He smiled as Fred stood before Nia with a ring. "Nia Carter," Fred said, voice shaking. "I loved the girl you were. I honor the woman you became, and I will protect the future God is building for you. Will you marry me?" Nia cried before she answered. "Yes." The church erupted. Tasha screamed so loudly that Loretta laughed through her tears. Their wedding was simple but beautiful. White flowers lined the aisle. Aaliyah walked ahead of Nia, dropping petals and smiling like a princess. Loretta held her Bible and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." When Pastor Isaiah blessed the union, he lifted his hands. What the enemy used for shame, God has turned into testimony. Years began to change Nia's life. With Fred's support, she turned the food stall into a restaurant. Then she opened a small boutique beside it. People came from all over Atlanta for her cooking and her grace. Nia was no longer the woman Zora had thrown away. She was rising. But across the city, Behind the golden gates of the Whitfield mansion, Marcus Whitfield was smiling beside his new bride. Her name was Simone Avery, and Marcus had no idea she had entered his house to destroy him. While Nia was rising with Fred beside her, Marcus Whitfield was standing inside a ballroom, smiling like the world still belonged to him. The Whitfield mansion was filled with music, flowers, and powerful guests. Crystal lights shone over polished floors. Reporters waited outside the gates. Zora Whitfield moved through the crowd like royalty, greeting politicians, bankers, and business owners as if they all owed her respect. That night, Marcus introduced his new wife, Simone Avery. She was a beautiful black woman in her early 30s with smooth brown skin, calm eyes, and the kind of quiet confidence that made people listen when she spoke. She wore an elegant ivory dress, diamond earrings, and a soft smile that revealed nothing. Zora approved immediately. "Now this," Zora whispered to Marcus, "is the kind of woman who belongs beside a Whitfield." Marcus smiled proudly. "I told you she came from the right world." Simone heard them, but she kept smiling, because Simone Avery was not from the world Marcus imagined. She was not just a rich woman from Chicago. She was an undercover financial crimes investigator. For 3 years, federal agents had been watching Whitfield Global. Money had disappeared from charity accounts, public contracts had been inflated, empty companies had received millions. But every time investigators got close, evidence vanished. So Simone became the evidence. She married Marcus with a fake background, fake family history, and a real mission: to bring the Whitfields down. At first, Marcus trusted her because she looked expensive and spoke softly. Zora trusted her because she was not Nia. That alone was enough. One evening, Marcus led Simone through his private office. The walls were lined with awards, framed magazine covers, and portraits of Whitfield men who had built their fortune before him. "My father started this empire," Marcus said, "but I made it untouchable." Simone smiled. "Untouchable?" Marcus poured himself a drink. "In this city, money buys loyalty, and fear keeps people quiet." Simone's fingers brushed the small recorder hidden inside her bracelet. "Sounds powerful," she said. Marcus laughed. "Power is everything." But Marcus talked too much. Every dinner revealed something. Every late-night phone call exposed another name. Every locked drawer Simone opened gave her another document. One night, Zora sat with Simone in the sitting room, sipping tea and bragging like pride had made her careless. "Marcus's father was too soft," Zora said. "He wanted clean business. Clean business is slow business." Simone tilted her head. "So you helped Marcus move faster?" Zora smiled. "A mother protects her son. Sometimes protection requires moving money where fools cannot see it." Simone lowered her eyes to hide her satisfaction. The next morning, Simone met secretly with Agent Malik Johnson in a quiet church parking lot across town. Agent Johnson was a serious black man in his 40s with a shaved head, tired eyes, and a reputation for taking down rich criminals who believed money made them invisible. He sat in an unmarked car while Simone handed him a flash drive. "This has offshore transfers, fake vendor lists, and recordings from Zora," Simone said. Malik's face hardened as he looked through the files. "This is enough for warrants." Simone looked toward the road. "Then move fast. Marcus is getting suspicious." And she was right. That night, Marcus found her standing near his locked cabinet. "What are you doing?" he asked. Simone turned calmly. "Looking for the charity gala guest list." Marcus stared at her for too long. "That cabinet is private." She smiled. "Then why keep a guest list there?" His eyes narrowed. For the first time, Marcus wondered if his perfect wife was too perfect. The next morning, The Whitfield Global Board gathered on the top floor of the company tower. Marcus sat at the head of the table in a black suit, speaking like a king. "We are entering a new era," he said. "No one can touch this company." Then the doors opened. Federal officers entered. The room froze. Marcus stood. "What is this?" Agent Malik Johnson stepped forward. "Marcus Whitfield, you are under arrest." Zora jumped from her chair. "How dare you!" Marcus turned when he heard heels behind him. Simone walked into the boardroom wearing a dark suit instead of a wife's dress. Marcus stared at her. "Simone?" She removed her wedding ring and placed it on the table. "My name is Special Agent Simone Avery," she said, "and your empire is finished." The moment Simone placed her wedding ring on the boardroom table, Marcus Whitfield knew the room had changed forever. Only minutes earlier, he had been speaking like a king. Now every board member stared at him like he was a criminal. Marcus looked at Simone, then at Agent Malik Johnson, then at the officers walking toward him. "This is a mistake," Marcus said quickly. "You cannot just walk into my company." Agent Johnson lifted a folder. "We have warrants for your office, your mansion, your private accounts, and every hidden company connected to Whitfield Global." Zora's face twisted with rage. "This is a setup." Simone looked at her coldly. "No, Mrs. Whitfield, this is evidence." Marcus stepped toward Simone. "You lied to me." She did not flinch. "You lied to the whole city." Two officers grabbed Marcus's arms. "Get your hands off me!" he shouted. The boardroom erupted. Some board members stood. Others backed away, like Marcus's shame might touch them. Chairman Robert Ellis, who had once doubted Marcus but still allowed him to lead, lowered his head in disappointment. "I warned your father," Chairman Ellis said quietly. "I warned him pride would destroy this family." Marcus struggled as the officers cuffed him. Zora rushed toward him. "Marcus, don't say a word. Our lawyers will handle this." But Agent Johnson turned to her. "Zora Whitfield, you are also under arrest." Zora froze. "For what?" she snapped. "Conspiracy, financial fraud, obstruction, and money laundering." For the first time in her life, Zora Whitfield looked afraid. By noon, news vans surrounded Whitfield Global. By evening, the whole city knew. The great Marcus Whitfield had fallen. Reporters shouted as officers led him out of the company building. "Mr. Whitfield, did you steal public funds?" "Mrs. Whitfield, did you help hide the money?" "Is Whitfield Global finished?" Marcus lowered his head, but cameras still caught everything. His expensive suit, his handcuffs, his shame. Across town, Nia stood inside her restaurant kitchen, stirring a pot of stew when Tasha ran in holding her phone. "Nia," Tasha said, breathless, "you need to see this." Nia wiped her hands. "See what?" Tasha turned the screen toward her. There he was, Marcus, being pushed into a police car. Nia's body went still. Fred entered from the dining area and saw her face. "What happened?" Tasha whispered. "Whitfield Global just got raided." Nia watched the video without speaking. Part of her remembered the man who had thrown money on a table and told her to leave. Part of her remembered the red juice on her dress. Part of her remembered begging him to speak. And now the same man who had once looked down on her could not even lift his face before the cameras. Fred gently took the phone from her hand. "You okay?" Nia nodded slowly. "I thought this would make me happy." "Does it?" She looked toward the kitchen window. "No," she said. "It just reminds me that God sees everything." The trial lasted months. Simone testified with calm precision. She explained the fake contracts, the hidden accounts, the stolen money, and the private recordings. Agent Johnson presented documents that even Marcus's lawyers could not explain away. Zora tried to blame everyone else. Marcus tried to blame Simone. but the evidence stood like a wall. In the end, Marcus was sentenced to prison. Zora received her own sentence too, but prison did not break her the way losing status did. Her friends stopped calling, her mansion was seized, her jewelry was auctioned. Her name became a joke in the same rooms where she once ruled. She died bitter and lonely before Marcus ever walked free again. Years passed behind prison walls. When Marcus was finally released, nobody waited for him. No driver, no mother, no lawyer, no mansion, no company, just a plastic bag with old clothes and a few dollars. He walked through Atlanta like a ghost of the man he used to be. People who once begged for his attention now crossed the street to avoid him. Former friends ignored his calls. Hotels rejected his cards. Restaurants asked him to leave. Pride kept him from shelters. Shame kept him from churches. Bitterness kept him from repentance. Then winter came. One freezing night, hungry and weak, Marcus curled beside an old brick house as snow covered his torn coat. He thought no one would notice him. Then headlights stopped in the road. A woman stepped out. Marcus lifted his head, and there stood Nia, the woman he had thrown away, the woman God had lifted up. Marcus's lips trembled. "Nia," he whispered. "Please help me." After Marcus lifted his head from the snow and begged Nia for help, the whole street seemed to hold its breath. Nia stood frozen. The wind pushed snow against her coat, but she barely felt it. All she could see was the man on the ground and the memories standing behind him like ghosts. Marcus in the mansion, Marcus looking away, Marcus letting Zora shame her, Marcus throwing her out like she had never mattered. Fred stepped beside her. "Nia," he said softly. She did not look at him. "He left me with nothing." "I know. He heard them threaten to release dogs on me and my mother." "I know. He rejected his own child before he even knew her name." Fred was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "But we cannot leave him here to die." Nia turned sharply. "So what do you want me to do? Smile and welcome him?" "No," Fred said. "Mercy does not mean blindness. It means we do what is right without pretending evil was not evil." Marcus coughed from the ground. His body shook so hard his teeth clicked together. "Nia," he whispered again. "Please." Nia closed her eyes. She remembered Pastor Isaiah's sermon from that same night. Never repay evil with evil, but never let mercy walk without wisdom. When she opened her eyes, tears were on her lashes. "Fred, call an ambulance." Marcus began to cry. "Thank you," he whispered. Nia's voice was cold. "Do not thank me yet." The ambulance arrived minutes later. Fred stayed with the broken SUV, while Nia followed behind in a rideshare to the clinic. She did not want to be alone with Marcus, not even in mercy. At the clinic, doctors treated him for exposure, hunger, and exhaustion. Marcus looked smaller under the hospital blankets. Without his suits, guards, cars, and money, he looked like any other man who had lost a war with life. But Nia knew better. A fallen snake was still a snake. The next morning, Fred met her outside the clinic with coffee in his hand and worry on his face. "Aaliyah is with Mama Loretta," he said. "She thinks we had car trouble and stayed with church friends." Nia nodded. "Good." Fred studied her. "You still don't want her to know?" "Not yet," Nia said. "If Marcus has changed, we will tell her carefully. But if he is still the same man, I will not let him walk into her heart and damage it." Fred agreed. "Then we protect her first." Because Marcus had nowhere to go, Pastor Isaiah helped arrange temporary shelter through Aunt Bernice. Aunt Bernice Walker was one of the oldest members of the church, a small but sharp-tongued black woman in her 70s who owned a clean guest house behind her home. She loved God deeply, but she did not trust foolishness. When Marcus arrived at her guest house, Aunt Bernice looked him up and down. "So you the famous Marcus Whitfield?" Marcus lowered his head. "I used to be." Aunt Bernice snorted. "Good. Maybe being used to be will teach you how to be human." Pastor Isaiah placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Son, tears are easy," he said. "Changed behavior is the proof of repentance." Marcus nodded quickly. "I understand, Pastor. I have done terrible things. I just want a chance to make it right." Nia watched him from the doorway. His voice sounded humble, his face looked ashamed, but something in his eyes moved too fast. A week later, Fred offered Marcus work at Nia's restaurant as a kitchen assistant, not because they trusted him fully, but because Fred believed a man needed responsibility if he claimed he wanted change. Marcus accepted with both hands. "Thank you," he said. "I will not disappoint you." At first, he worked hard. He washed dishes, he chopped vegetables, he swept floors, he called Nia Mrs. Brooks, and called Fred Sir. Church members began whispering that prison had humbled him. Even Tasha admitted, maybe the man finally met Jesus for real. But Aunt Bernice was not convinced. One afternoon, she saw Marcus standing near the doorway of Nia's office, staring at Fred's framed family photo on the wall. In the photo, Nia smiled between Fred and Aaliyah. Marcus's face changed when he looked at it. It was not sorrow, it was envy. Aunt Bernice narrowed her eyes. "You lost something?" Marcus turned quickly. "No, ma'am, just admiring the family." "Admire from the kitchen," she said. Marcus forced a smile and walked away. But that night, while wiping down the counters, he looked through the dining room window and saw Fred helping Nia into their car. Fred kissed her forehead. Nia laughed softly. Marcus's hand tightened around the cleaning rag. "That life," he whispered, "should have been mine." In the weeks after Marcus whispered that Fred's life should have been his fake humility became harder to wear. At first, nobody noticed. He still arrived early at Nia's restaurant. He still washed dishes. He still greeted customers with a quiet smile. He still bowed his head when Pastor Isaiah prayed over the staff. But behind that calm face, envy was growing teeth. Every day, Marcus watched Nia move through the restaurant like a woman who had built herself from ashes. Customers hugged her. Workers respected her. Fred called her "my queen" without shame. Aaliyah's photo smiled from the office wall, and Marcus hated it. One afternoon, Aunt Bernice caught him standing too close to Nia's office again. "Marcus," she said sharply. He jumped and turned around. "Yes, ma'am?" "That kitchen sink moved into the office?" Marcus forced a laugh. "No, ma'am, I was just looking for the supply list." Aunt Bernice folded her arms. "Supply list is taped beside the freezer." "Oh, right, I forgot." "You forget too much for a man who remembers everybody's bank account used to have his name on it." His smile faded. Aunt Bernice stepped closer. "I see you." Marcus lowered his eyes. "I'm only trying to help." "Then help where your hands belong." He walked away, but his jaw tightened. Later that evening, Nia entered the pantry to check flour and sugar bags. Marcus followed her inside and closed the door halfway. Nia turned. "Why are you in here?" "I wanted to talk." "Then talk from the doorway." Marcus smiled sadly. "You still hate me." "I do not hate you," Nia said. "But I remember you." He stepped closer. "I was wrong, Nia. I know that now. But don't you ever wonder what life would have been if my mother had not poisoned everything?" Nia's eyes hardened. "Your mother did not force your mouth shut when I begged you to defend me." Marcus flinched. "You let her humiliate me," Nia continued. "You let her threaten my mother. You abandoned your child. Do not stand here and rewrite history." His face changed. For 1 second, the old Marcus looked out through the new one. "You think Fred is better than me?" Nia did not blink. Yes. Marcus stepped back like the word had cut him. If you ever disrespect my marriage again, Nia said, you will leave this place the same day. He lowered his head. I'm sorry. But he was not sorry. That night, Marcus waited until the restaurant closed. He watched Fred type his laptop password at the office desk. Then he pretended to mop near the doorway, repeating the numbers silently in his mind. The next morning, he used them. Inside Fred's laptop, Marcus found bank statements, property documents, vendor contracts, and insurance files. His eyes widened. Nia had more than a restaurant. She had land, savings, investments, a future. Marcus smiled slowly. So the poor girl became rich, he whispered. He began with small things, a fake vendor form, a changed payment account, a forged supply request. He thought he was careful, but Denise Holloway caught it. Denise was Nia's accountant, a smart black woman in her 40s with neat glasses, a calm voice, and a mind that missed nothing. She had protected Nia's business books from the day the restaurant opened. When Denise saw the strange account activity, she called Nia immediately. Nia, somebody inside is trying to move money. Nia gripped the phone. Inside? Yes, and whoever it is knows Fred's login. Nia closed her eyes. She already knew. That evening, Nia told Fred everything. Pain crossed his face, but anger followed. I wanted him to change, Fred said. So did I, Nia replied, but wanting does not make it true. Fred looked toward the kitchen where Marcus was humming softly over a pot. Then we test him. The next day, Fred spoke loudly during lunch. Nia, maybe we should take that short trip next week, he said. Marcus can handle the kitchen for one night. I trust him. Marcus froze, then smiled. You do? Fred nodded. Everyone deserves a chance to prove themselves. Marcus lowered his head, pretending to be touched, but when no one was looking, his eyes shone with dark excitement. That night he stood alone over a dinner pot in Nia's kitchen. Then he pulled a hidden packet from his pocket and smiled. The night after Marcus pulled the hidden packet from his pocket, the whole house felt too quiet. Nia sat at the dining table, watching him move around the kitchen. Marcus had cooked as if he wanted to impress them. Chicken, rice, vegetables, and a rich stew sat on the table. The plates were arranged neatly. The glasses were filled. Even the candles had been lit. Fred sat beside Nia, but his eyes were sharp. They both knew this was a test, but Marcus did not know they were watching him. He carried the last bowl to the table and smiled. I wanted to do something special. You both saved my life. I owe you everything. Nia looked at him carefully. That is a big thing to say. Marcus placed one hand over his chest. I mean it. Fred reached for his fork. Then the doorbell rang. Everyone froze. Marcus's smile disappeared. The bell rang again, louder this time. Fred stood slowly and opened the door. Pastor Isaiah stood outside, breathing hard, his coat dusted with snow. Do not eat that food, he said. Nia rose from her chair. Marcus laughed, but his laugh came out broken. Pastor, what are you talking about? Pastor Isaiah stepped inside. The Lord woke me from sleep. I saw this table. I saw these plates. And I heard one warning. Do not let them eat. Fred turned toward Marcus. Nia's heart began to pound. Marcus shook his head. This is madness. I cooked this food with my own hands. Nia pushed one plate toward him. Then eat it. Marcus stared at the plate. The room became silent. Fred's voice was calm but dangerous. Eat it, Marcus. Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. I am not hungry. Nia's eyes filled with hurt, but her voice stayed firm. You poisoned it. No! Marcus shouted. You are all against me. He stepped backward. Fred blocked the doorway. Pastor Isaiah lowered his head sadly. Son, God gave you mercy, and you used it for evil. Marcus's face twisted. Mercy? She took everything from me. Nia stared at him in disbelief. I saved you from freezing. You should have come back to me, Marcus shouted. That house, that husband, that life, it should have been mine. Fred took one step forward. No, it became mine because I loved what you threw away. Marcus lunged toward the side door, but Fred grabbed his arm. Nia called the police with shaking hands. When the officers arrived, Marcus was still crying, still begging, still blaming everyone but himself. The food was taken away and tested. The truth came back quickly. It had been poisoned. Marcus fell to his knees. Nia, please, he sobbed. One more chance. Nia looked down at him. For years she had feared this man's power. Then she had pitied his fall. Now she saw him clearly. You did not need another chance, she said. You needed a new heart. The police took him away. This time, Nia did not cry. Years passed. Peace returned slowly, but it returned. Nia and Fred renewed their vows in church. Aaliyah grew into a strong young woman, loved deeply by the father who raised her. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived from the prison hospital. Nia knew Marcus's handwriting before she finished opening it. Fred stood beside her as she read. Marcus was dying from a heart condition. His letter was weak, shaky, and full of regret. He confessed that he had destroyed Nia once, then tried to destroy her again after she showed him mercy. He asked for no money, no freedom, no rescue. Only one thing. He wanted Aaliyah to know the truth, and he wanted his daughter to forgive him. That night, Nia and Fred sat Aaliyah down. Aaliyah was 23 now, no longer the little girl asking where her daddy was. She listened as Nia told her everything. The accident, the forced marriage, the rejection, the mansion gate, the snow, the poison, the letter. When Nia finished, Aaliyah's eyes were wet. So Marcus Whitfield is my father? She whispered. Nia nodded. By blood, yes. Aaliyah turned to Fred. And you knew? Fred's voice broke. Yes. And you still raised me? Fred held her hand. Loving you was never a burden. It was my honor. Aaliyah cried into his arms. Later, she visited Marcus in the prison hospital. He was weak, thin, and ashamed. My daughter, he whispered. Aaliyah stood beside his bed. I forgive you, she said softly. Not because you earned it, but because I refused to carry your darkness. Marcus wept. Weeks later, he died. On Sunday, the family returned to church. Pastor Isaiah stood before the congregation and lifted his Bible. Mercy saved a man from the snow, he preached. Wisdom exposed the poison. Justice carried him away. And forgiveness freed the family he tried to destroy. Nia held Fred's hand. Aaliyah leaned against her mother's shoulder, and Nia finally understood. Marcus had once thrown her into the cold like she was nothing, but God had lifted her up like treasure, and no one could ever send her back into the snow again. This story teaches us one powerful lesson. Never mistake kindness for weakness. Nia helped Marcus because she had a good heart, but she also learned that forgiveness does not mean allowing someone to destroy you again. Mercy is beautiful, but mercy must walk with wisdom. Some people truly change, but some people only pretend when life has humbled them. Marcus had everything, but pride, greed, and cruelty destroyed him. Nia had almost nothing, but faith, patience, and a clean heart lifted her higher than the people who once looked down on her. So the real message is this: do not repay evil with evil, but do not ignore the signs when someone has not changed. Protect your peace, protect your family, and remember, the people who reject you today may one day watch God raise you higher than they ever imagined. Now, family, what do you think about this story? Do you think Nia was right to help Marcus when she found him freezing in the snow? or should she have left him for the authorities to handle? And who was your favorite character in this story? Was it Nia, the woman who survived betrayal and still chose mercy? Was it Fred, the man who loved and protected what another man rejected? Was it Aaliyah, who forgave without carrying bitterness? Or was it Pastor Isaiah, whose warning saved the family from Marcus's final evil plan? As the creator, my favorite character is Fred, because Fred showed us that real love is not about owning someone. Real love is about covering, protecting, respecting, and standing beside someone even after life has wounded them. And my biggest lesson from Nia is this: being thrown away by the wrong person does not mean you have lost your value. Sometimes rejection is just God removing you from a place that was never worthy of you. So tell us your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this story and this is your first time on this channel, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next powerful family drama story. This is Mr. Hope, and we will see you in our next video.